House the secondary heating system, which is a pellet fired burner. At present, the space for the maintenance department would be housed in the old nursing home, and a bit of storage, and there's a small laundry facility. The report that was referred to earlier called out for approximately 3,000 square feet of space. Would probably take care of the needs of the cooperative extension and the county employees and maintenance and so forth have been sharing with us what their needs are above and beyond that. If you think of the old building in the core, which is the center of the building, was approximately 15,000 square feet. It had 4 wings off of that were used for the housing of our residents in the nursing home. I believe they're somewhere in the neighborhood of 1,500 square feet or 3,000 for each wing. The commissioners are looking at different options, have not finalized and presented to our delegation what they wish to do with the space is. The question came up to the delegation, how much space is needed, and the question of whether we should be housing the cooperative extension in the old nursing home. The commissioners, if I'm not speaking out of turn, are concerned at the time frame that this is moving along at, and the cooperative extension were asked at the last delegation meeting previous to today to explore continuing their contract where they are presently for at least another year. The funding of the delegation, our subcommittee made a recommendation to fund the cooperative extension through this cycle at its present level, which is what was brought to us. And I think I've pretty well brought you up to where we are at this point.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Yes, sir. Come on, if you introduce yourself, please.
My name is excuse me. My name is Kamal Nath. I'm with Joan in the sense that I'm not really clear about the purpose of this meeting. We are discussing a permanent place for the co-op extension. Nursing home is the only one that's on the table. Where they are in Conway is on rent. So you are saying can extend 1 more year. What other alternate we have? What are we discussing? If not nursing home, then where? And when and how?
The purpose of tonight's meeting to see if the people collectively, before we go to the delegation and make our opinion on funding, is to whether we would like to build a standalone facility here to house them, or whether the extension would remain in rented space somewhere else, and presently it is in Conway. I know that there was information that some people were under the impression that tonight's discussion was whether to fund or to defund this program. That is not what the discussion, and that's not what we had posted at.
No,
do you have more, please?
Yeah, I'm just staying with the mission of this evening's meeting. When co-op extension moved from Ossipee to Conway, the understanding was that this would be the permanent facility they will move in. So I'm at a loss in understanding why this issue has been raised again. When this was visited, I don't know how many years back, when they moved from Ossipee. So, you know, unless there is some other alternate choices we are talking about, it makes sense to me.
Okay.
But this was something that was floating, that Conway was a temporary thing till this nursing home thing will take place. And they're asking, should we? So, you know, I'm lost.
Okay. I will say, though, that in somewhat of an answer there, or just to fill in, the cooperative extension was housed and was happy in Conway, in Ossipee, for a number of years. And my understanding of the issue was that the landlord and the cooperative extension were not pleased with the terms and the amount of work that was being done with the building. Excuse me, and that's why the extension went back to Conway. David, excuse me, Representative.
David Babson,
I think the major concern with going back to Conway was the rent had run out, and the landlord, the university wanted us to make it ADA compliant, which would have cost thousands and thousands of dollars. And the landlord wanted us to pay for it, and that's where the breakdown started.
Okay. Thank you, Representative. Henry?
It's Henry Spencer. I'm on the advisory council from Effingham. You did mention the word funding, and I think what you really meant at the time when you used that was whether or not the delegation will appropriate the money to rehab the old nursing home. Right. When you mentioned funding, it wasn't funding for the organization, it was funding for possible work to the nursing home.
That'd be correct.
And apparently there are not a number of people in the room that really felt like it was sort of a foregone conclusion that Carroll, the Cooperative Extension, was going to move into the nursing home. But the question on the table is that will the delegation allocate the money to restore the building? Because Cooperative Extension, everybody could agree they should move in, but if we can't rehab the building, they can't move in.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
My name is Barbara Wood, and I'm a master gardener, and I live in Wolfboro. And I would like to say that I think you should move back to Ossipee. Most extension services are at county complexes. And for people from the lower part of the county to drive to Conway, such as myself, to attend meetings, is a long way to go. Ossipee's about halfway. And I think that having made a previous decision, that you should stick with it, because I think we should be back at the county complex.
Thank you, Barbara. Yes, please.
Noreen Downs, have you stated what the cost of the renovation would be and what the approximate payback period time would be?
Thank you, Noreen. It's the commissioners, and if they want to add into what I'm about to say, the commissioners are in the process of discovering what it is going to cost to make the renovations. They are in the process. I would say their present position at present, that's been explained to us, is that they would like to save the core building in 2 of the wings and to mothball 2 of the wings. They have engaged Bonnet, Page and Stone, I believe, to do a study. The commissioners are due to come back to the delegation August 22nd to bring forward what those cost projections would be, what the real needs are for space, and what if any other uses they deem appropriate for more than 3,000 square feet. Someone else? Susan?
I'm Susan Wiley, and I'm from Sandwich, and just start off by saying that for more years than I am old, the Extension Service was up at North. It's time for it to come to Ossipee. It's time for it to come to Ossipee for lots of reasons. One of them has to do with the fact that it's agriculture, woodland, forestry, all of those kinds of services. We have the space here seemingly to do some experiential learning, seemingly for having some sort of learning lab that would help the Extension Service. There's probably no better model for economic development than having private, public, government working together for economic development. And I would like to say, and I would like to see the Extension Service extend some of what they do, some of those partnerships built more into our government. And I think specifically about the number of food service programs that Extension Service does. And they do that for the hospitality industry up north, primarily up north, though they do it here as well. And wouldn't it be wonderful if we could integrate some of that work with the kitchen in the old nursing home and with our inmates? We have recidivism problems in Carroll County in our correctional facility, as we do across the world. A piece of what needs to happen is those folks need some job skills. We have, with the extension, the resources to do it. We have the research to do it. And those kinds of projects I would think would work real well here. As well as some of the projects, the berries, sugaring, beekeeping, all of those kinds of things where we have the experts in the Extension Service who could help us. And we are in Carroll County not all privileged to have higher education or additional education. The job skills that Extension can teach people are helping them to get jobs. And I will say that I have been the beneficiary of a lot of Extension education. I am a master gardener. I have had the opportunity to listen to some of what goes on at the county farm, and I see very well how having blueberries here, inmates here for free labor, the Extension Service here on the campus to help do some education, we could indeed create some jobs. We have the space, we have the materials, and we just need to use a little bit of thought to make things work. We're paying $40,000 a year for occupancy costs. We're paying that in a essential retail model. We're using Extension Service, and not to say Extension Service only works from Monday through Friday, because they do an enormous amount of outreach in communities, but we're paying that high rent for office space from Monday through Friday in Conway. And we don't need that space at night. We don't need it on weekends. And we don't, it seems to me like a misuse of money. We could conceivably, and I think if we figured out what's costing us per day to be in that space, we could do that here. And I would see the payback time as being a very short period of time. So I certainly hope that the delegation will look at the possibility of lots of partnerships and a little creative energy to make things work, not just for the sake of extension, but for the sake of the many people in the county, especially in this area, who are interested in growing, producing, farmers markets, and all of the other things that extension could very well help us with. Thank you.
Thank you, Susan. Frank, did you?
Yes,
Comment?
No, I have a question for everybody.
That's pertinent to.
Yes.
Thank you.
I would like to ask, not counting seminars or a guest lecturer, I would like to see a show of hands of everybody in this room who has actually completed a course of instruction with the UNH Cooperative Extension.
Can you define course of action?
Pardon me?
Can you define a course of action?
A course.
Course of education.
Yes.
Participated in a program that they put through from start to finish, whether it was PPG.
I thought we could bring you along, Bruce. Okay. Someone else wish to speak? Sir in the white. Would you care to speak? Just raising your hand. Is there someone wishes to speak? Please, sir.
Yes.
State your name.
Ralph Lutchen. I'm on the advisory board and also master gardener, and I live in Madison. My understanding is that, and I think I heard this tonight, 15,000 square foot footprint for the building. 3,000 square foot would be used for the extension. And there is, the rent currently is $40,000 a year. And of that, approximately 10,000 of it is services. So $30,000 a year is expended for rent for the current building. If you used an estimated cost for renovation of $400,000 for the entire building, extension is about 20% of it, so that's $80,000. You would recover your investment in less than 3 years based on those numbers. If I was grossly in error, you would obviously easily recover it in some longer term, but less than 5 years, presumably, you would recover your investment.